the Royal Blue Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Analysing Everton, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Royal Blue channel. It's the first show in 2 weeks. I do apologise, I've been seeing the world. But alongside me I've got Josh Williams.
Who hasn't been seeing the world?
He's been waiting in this pod room patiently for me for the last 2 weeks. Or something like that, eh?
Yeah, starving me.
But yeah, it's good to be back anyway. A lot's happened whilst I've been away. Missed a couple of games. But we'll be addressing today the Arsenal game on Sunday, which was a narrow 3-2 defeat. We'll have a little overview of some things that we've noticed since Ancelotti's come in, because we haven't really done that yet, but that's because there wasn't that many games to look at, was there?
No.
And then we'll have a look to a fairly big fixture on the weekend against Manchester United. So we'll start with Arsenal. Josh, I assume you managed to catch this game.
Yep.
An entertaining game for neutral. But what were your thoughts? Just initial thoughts on the whole.
Yeah, I thought it was a decent game. I thought it went vaguely as expected in terms of the stylistic nature of both teams. I expected Arteta's team to try and dominate, especially considering they were playing at home.
Yeah.
And I expected Everton to basically, play vertically, which I'm sure we'll get to in the Ancelotti section.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a competitive game, and maybe I didn't expect as many goals as that.
No.
But
another goal within the first, 45 seconds?
Yeah,
something like
that. I can't remember what I predicted actually, and we wouldn't have predicted.
No, we didn't get to predict it, annoyingly.
Yeah. I probably would have said 2-1 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I always knew it would be a tough game, and Everton's record isn't great there, but they got off to a fantastic start, and come full time. What are you laughing at?
Just no thanks to Yerry Mina, who absolutely bulldozed their into the penalty box.
What happened with them breaking the line on that goal, the Arsenal defence? Because it seemed like they have a fairly solid line, and then Mina just...
It was weird because I think Everton had 2 takers over the ball, and the first taker approached it to as though he was going to hit it.
Yeah.
I think Kolasinac thought he was going to hit it, so he focused solely on Mina, man marking him almost, and just darted into the penalty box with him.
Yeah.
And the ball didn't actually get hit and delivered into the box until about 2 or 3 seconds later.
Well, yeah, he basically dropped it. They're offside line by about 5 yards.
Yeah, it was mental. I actually screenshotted it and tweeted it, so...
Did you, yeah?
Yeah, check my Twitter at Distance Cover, you want to see it, but it does look mad.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like it's Photoshop.
But yeah, it was a bit of a topsy-turvy game, really, which we'll come on to. Now, we'll just start with the full-time numbers. Everton actually won the XG. According to the data provider I've used, it was... XG of 2 for Everton and 1.3 for Arsenal, and Everton also outshot Arsenal in terms of they took 14 shots, 5 of which were on target, compared to Arsenal's 9 with 4 on target. Possession was fairly even. It was about 48 Everton and 52 Arsenal, but
that's a little bit surprising.
Yeah,
I thought Arsenal saw more of the ball in that.
Yeah,
well, I felt like Everton were a little bit more focused on not counter-attacking, because I wouldn't really call it that, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they still did edge it, but as I said, it was a topsy-turvy game, wasn't it? It was a little bit...
Yeah.
It was just... I thought it was entertaining, but a bit chaotic. Everton obviously take the lead, but then if you look at the XG timing chart, it's a shame that we can't put the graphic on there. I might tweet it out later, but... what Calvert-Lewin's effort is as an XG of around 0.09, which isn't a lot really, and then that's basically it for Everton until the second goal right on half time, where it increases off Richarlison's effort. I think Richarlison's shot was that XG of 0.16, but in the meantime, Arsenal shoot ahead with Nikita. Is it Nikita? Nketiah. Yeah. Obviously they scored 2 goals in response. Boost up to the XG there to 1.15, and then they kind of, even though they get the third, through a really good finish from Aubameyang, it kind of stays at a level of around 1.2, 1.3 for the remainder of the game after that goal. And Everton up until really the 70th minute had an XG of just 0.54, which suggests they didn't really create many more clear-cut chances after they scored twice. But then obviously
both from set pieces as well.
Correct, yeah. So there wasn't a lot from open play, was there really?
No, but if you are generating chances from set pieces and their headers maybe, or in Calvert-Lewin's case with the first goal and over a kick, I think it was.
Yeah.
They're going to be deemed from a model perspective as a low quality chances that you're probably not going to score, but obviously Everton found the net with both. Just a little bit more on the possession thing. Arsenal actually had 63% possession up until they took the lead. And then as soon as they took the lead, by the end of the match that had dropped down to about 39%.
So that's worth noting then that
obviously game state came as well.
Yeah, they decided to theoretically shut up shop, you could argue.
Yeah.
Which then played into Everton's hands, because I thought over the last 20 minutes Everton became a lot more threatening side. So the bulk of their XG coming that side in that time, and they really were unlucky not to find an equaliser. Calvert-Lewin obviously had some big chances, but yeah, on the whole it was, as I said, it was just a bit of, I feel like Everton started okay and finished okay, but were a little bit, I don't know, they were second best in between. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, just on what you've just said there as well, in terms of Everton coming at Arsenal towards the final stage of the match. I suppose that offers a segue into Andre Gomez, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I was just
he's not on the agenda, is he? So I just wanted to make sure that we got in there, because
no, we were, because I have put it, I have to say, I think it's something to do with Gomez. Now, Gomez has been a strange one, because obviously me and you, we kind of rely a lot on data, don't we? And try and interpret the same.
To a reasonable degree.
Yeah, well,
50-50 we try to do that.
Yeah, we've just had a big debate about that on another podcast, haven't we? But yeah, we try to incorporate into what we see, so we're not people who just solely sit there, looking at spreadsheets all day. We watch football, and our opinions aren't just formed on numbers. It's what you see with the eyes as well. And Gomez has been one of those players at Everton I think has split people down the middle, because in the numbers he doesn't look that great, does he? But
no,
the stuff that maybe isn't as quantifiable in numbers, he seems to do really well, which is why he's very popular at Everton. And certainly when he come on, considering how long he'd been out, I thought he changed the game a little bit in Everton's favour.
Yeah, it's one of the best performances I've seen him give in terms of his possession game.
Yeah.
Spreading the play from side to side and being quite expansive with his passing.
Yeah.
I think he nearly set up Richarlison for a goal, but it got slightly intercepted by Bellerin and then cleared by Leno, I think.
Yeah.
But if you actually check his passing network, which sadly we can't show, I don't think.
No, again, and we're going to try and one of us, it'll probably be me, I'll tweet it out after, or with the show.
I was actually going to do a piece on it earlier in the week, but it just felt as though, how many minutes did he actually play? Half an hour maybe?
Yeah.
It just felt as though it weren't enough for a full piece, but I don't know, I just think he offered a solid sense of midfield presence that Everton have maybe missed for a number of months.
There was a varied range of passes there, wasn't there? There was a lot of balls into the final third, there was cross-field passes, and I think what really captures his performance is he completed 25 successful passes in his cameo, second half cameo, and that was 2 less than Sigurdsson completed, and he played a full 90 minutes.
Yeah, well that was another thing I was just going to add then. He showed an intent to actually get on the ball. He was shown for the ball plenty, wanted possession and things like that, which a lot of players don't do really.
Yeah, he was aggressive with it, wasn't he? He was aggressive in his pass choice, and I think that was a big factor in Everton creating more chances. We already touched on that they had some big chances in the closing stages, and someone who got quite a bit of stick even despite scoring was Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He had an XG in the game of 1.4, which is high, isn't it? And you'd probably argue that you'd be hoping that they'd get at least maybe 2 goals in the game. He's only got the 1. I don't know what your opinion was on the chances he had, or...
I think any criticism is a little bit harsh personally. I think the criticism should come and should be directed towards players that aren't getting on the end of chances and aren't taking shots and things like that. Like, I remember earlier in the season, the Charity Shield. It is Charity Shield, isn't it?
Community I can't remember. Community Shield, I think it is now, yeah. The Liverpool-Manchester City game.
Yeah. I think Salah took 10 shots, didn't score. 10's a lot, those that don't know. Didn't score. Divock Origi on the opposite flank took 1 shot. Salah got the brunt of the criticism. I understand why, but at the same time, the lad who took 1 shot in the match on the opposite flank is getting away scot-free, and when he's been not even half the threat. So I think that Calvert-Lewin's getting in these situations, getting shots away, being a problem for the opposing team. You know, in the majority of matches, maybe some of those chances that he missed will find a net, and that's just what he's got to continue doing. Yeah.
Well, I thought we'd do a bit of a myth-busting scenario on this, really, because I said people are accusing him of, you know, missing big chances. Now, I assume when they're saying things like big chances, they're thinking sitters, I guess. And this is where, you know, a lot of people listening will be familiar with XG, others won't, others might be really against it, but I think before commenting, you should maybe read up on it, because it's really, really good for these situations in terms of determining what was actually a big chance and what was a lot more difficult to score than you realise. So far this season, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has a combined XG of 11.1. So that means, based on the chances he's created, a player of average ability would be expected to score maybe 11 goals. Yeah.
Based on the shots he's taken.
Yeah, exactly. Calvert-Lewin scored 12. So there's it's not a huge overperformance, is it? But
no, I think the crucial aspect is that it's not an underperformance.
Exactly, yeah. I was just going to say it's a case of, you know, he's not massively overperforming, but he is, at worst, he's where he should be in terms of scoring the chances he should. And I think when you watch the game, you can be impacted by the old narratives you tell yourselves, where you think he should have scored this, should have scored that, when in reality that isn't always the case. And Calvert-Lewin is performing really at a level he should be, and he's scoring the chances he should be on a fairly consistent basis.
But the thing is, you'd probably argue that he shouldn't have scored the overhead kick.
Yeah.
So he's balanced it out in over a 90-minute period at least, because he's scored at least one of his chances that he's been given, albeit the most difficult one.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I suppose one other thing I want to add with Calvert-Lewin is, for me, what people seem to forget with young players is one of the biggest things that they lack is consistency.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Because they're still trying to fine-tune the game. You know, Calvert-Lewin feels like he's been around for a few years, but he's still only 22, I think he is now. Like, 22 is still really young. So you've got to accept that there's going to be games where he's not quite there, or he's not performing at the same level he was the week before. But that's just how it is, isn't it, for young players?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd be interested to see actually where Harry Kane was at 22 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think he was still on loan at that point, was he? But I know he had a few of those spells out before he actually established himself in the team. And I think Calvert-Lewin, for me, I've got no concerns about him. I think he's going to reach a really high level. And if he can continue playing alongside Richarlison for an extended period, and they can develop together under Ancelotti, I think they're going to become a real handful for opposing teams to deal with, because they're both all-rounders really. They both got very few weaknesses to the game. They're
like perfect in the two, aren't they? And when you consider they're both 22 and under, both scored 10 plus league goals in the campaign. It's something to be celebrated really. And
you don't usually get strikers that are that young, while also being very physical but also very mobile as well.
Yeah,
so they can hold up a ball and things like that. They can battle, scrap and that sort of thing. But they can offer a threat from behind as well, and you don't usually get that mix, especially two strikers in the same squad.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cliche line, but it is like, you know, the pair of them are handfuls, and they both bring different issues for the defence, don't they, to deal with.
Yeah, it should theoretically be a dream for a number 10 type to play behind those two, just because of the amount of, I suppose, attention that they will draw from defenders. But I'm not sure Sigurdsson, man, he has actually, no he hasn't, but I'm saying He hasn't been deployed as a number 10 behind those two, has he?
Not since the 4-4-2, just because there's no room for it.
Yeah, he's been deployed as a number 10, but behind the lone striker, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Behind,
that's right.
In a 4-2-3-1.
I mean, I won't come just onto Sigurdsson just yet, because I'll
Still sharpening your knife.
Yeah. But what I will do though, on the subject of, I'll use it as a kind of segue, on the subject of those type of players, another player who got a ton of stick, and I think it's good to maybe talk to you about him, because you did a rare Everton article on this player not so long ago, was Alex Iwobi. Iwobi got criticised a fair bit, and he has been since he's come, really, of just not being up to standard. I mean, what are your kind of general thoughts on Iwobi, and what were your thoughts of his game on Sunday?
I just think he's the type of player you have to judge certain players differently based on basically what they're good at. And I think Iwobi isn't really he's not going to be the type that is going to find the net a great deal. And he may not even be the type to register that many assists, to be honest. And already the perspective on that will probably be, well, he's useless then, because he's an attacking player, which I understand.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you've bought him, so you've got to use him for what he's good at. And what he is good at, which I've said a few times I think on this podcast, is he's good at progressing the ball, finding the penalty box, finding the final third, or at least that's what he attempts to do a great deal. And just for a bit of perspective on that, I looked at the numbers for this season. So 132 wide midfield players on the left and the right have amassed over 1,000 minutes this season in Europe's top 5 leagues. Out of those 132, Iwobi is 8th for through passes attempted per 90, and he's 15th for passes to the penalty box per 90. And last season, this bit was in the piece, I think last season for Arsenal he was top for passes to the penalty box attempted per 90, and maybe 3rd for through passes or something like that. So that's clearly what he's trying to do on the pitch a lot. So he's a risky player. He's a player that will give the ball away an awful lot, but usually players in that mould, it's the whole risk versus reward thing. So when his passes come off, they should be highly valuable, and they'll maybe result in a scoring chance materialising or something like that. I think the issue is, if you do look at his accuracy, he isn't completing a great deal of them, which is maybe a problem, and maybe is something that he needs to refine in terms of his decision making when and when not to attempt these balls, or B, from Ancelotti's perspective, he's obviously trying to use him, basically make his environment on the pitch more suitable to him succeeding with those passes. Basically, certain players making certain runs, him operating in more space, whatever it may be, just to make what he's trying to do more successful and more impactful, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, spot on. It's I do wonder whether, as you touched on there, he's quite aggressive in his pass selection, shall we say. He'll often attempt things more penetrative, and as a result it does often involve misplaced passes or interceptions, and that stuff can often impact a fan's opinion on how he's performed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like percentage football, really. So some players will spot an opening, spot a pass or whatever, and they'll think to themselves, there's about a 60% chance of that coming off in a split second in their own heads. Some players will look at the 60% and think to themselves, it's not worth doing, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas some players will see the opening 60% in their own heads and think, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And those players generally tend to look quite rough in the way that they play, and they tend to give the ball away a lot and all things like that. But usually then, if you look at the numbers beneath the surface, they've usually got a bit of end product to the game. They've usually got goals and assists and all this kind of stuff. So It just depends really, I suppose.
Yeah, when you look at his numbers in isolation as well, they surprised me a little bit. I think it was, now this isn't my data, this is Ryan Williams on Twitter who tweeted this out, but 59 minutes played, 28 touches, 90% pass success rate, 1 key pass.
Wobie.
Yeah.
That's quite surprising.
Yeah, 2 shots and 3 interceptions. Like, numbers alone, it looks like he hasn't performed at a bad level, but I said we watched him and I don't know. I'll be honest. I just want to say now, I wasn't impressed with his performance. I think
some of the narrative may stem from in the Arsenal game at least. Obviously, two of Everton's breaks, 2 of Everton's promising moves in the first half ended with him hitting 2 shots over the bar. Didn't even hit the target. Yeah. So that's obviously not great.
Yeah.
And that will form a perception in your head as a supporter watching them.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying though.
I'm glad you said that actually, because again, plenty of assists here for me. We can move on to just what you've said there, something that... Now this has actually been a reoccurring issue for me when watching and analysing Everton's games, and I think we saw it a lot on Sunday. Arsenal's defence looked a little bit shaky for me. I don't know what you thought. Obviously they conceded from 2 set pieces and 2 defendable set pieces in my eyes. They just looked a little bit uneasy, but too often I felt like Everton lacked patience in the final third. So they build attacks, but there was too many rushed shots, or they were too keen to swing a ball into the box, a bit like an aimless cross, hoping that it may land somewhere near Calvert-Lewin, who's strong in there, he might get his head on it. And it feels like all the top sides in the division tend to be good at penning sides into their defensive third and just demonstrate a little bit of patience. I'm not forcing the issue. Just being a little bit wiser with the ball and making it work better than basically taking a pot shot, it flying over the bar, or in Sigurdsson's case nearly at the corner flag. And what that would then do is just basically hit reset button on the attack, hand possession back to the opposition, and all the good work that you've done in terms of progressing the ball up the pitch is undone.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I'm not exactly sure which scenarios you're referring to, but from my perspective on that, I think the intent will be to do that, almost. I think Ancelotti's obviously spoke about the whole vertical passing thing. I think he's appreciated that. Once looking at his players, they're not particularly suited to breaking down a stubborn defence, because he hasn't really got, many inventive, creative players, really, has he? But he's got players that are quite direct. So, I think Everton's overall attack, certainly for the rest of the season, and up to now, under Ancelotti, has been very front to back very quickly.
Yeah.
Progress from A to B as quickly as you can. And I think it's... I know what you mean in terms of a lack of patience, but I think it'll have almost been an instruction from the start from Ancelotti to, especially when you're facing sides in the top 6, try and exploit their expansive shape as quickly as you can. Maybe it's resulted in them shooting when they shouldn't shoot and being a little bit reckless with the decision making, which could obviously improve, but I do think it's intentional to quickly progress and quickly get a shot away as a means of attacking.
Yeah, and so when I was trying to work this out after Sunday, because it was irritating me, I basically discovered what you've just said was the case. So I've noticed since Ancelotti come in, Everton have made the 3rd fewest number of passes within 20 yards of the opposition's goal. But there's also been a drop in their PPDA. Now, for those who don't know, passes per defensive action, long story short, it's basically a tool that's used for measuring how aggressive a side's press is. Now, under Silva, Everton had quite an aggressive press, which is why you'd often see them not give away many shots, but when they did, they tended to be of a high quality, really. That was a theme that we touched on a fair bit just before Silva's sacking. But there's been a drop from the PPDA under Silva was around 8, and it's 10 now, so that ranks around mid-table, which suggests that Everton may be focusing more on solidity, remaining a little bit more compact, and then as you said, hitting sides fast on the break. Another side who ranked fairly low in terms of passes near the opposition's goal and have a low PPDA are Wolves.
I thought you were going to say Wolves.
Yeah, I was going to leave the floor open to you there, but I wasn't sure of putting you on the spot. But I knew you would have known who it was, yeah, Wolves. The Wolves are obviously a very good side, and they have a blueprint in place, don't they? And it seems Everton are replicating that somewhat. So I have no issue with that, and for the reasons you stated, I agree with it. Everton haven't got that creative spark, and they had issues on the Silver breaking sides down. But on the other hand, I just think sometimes you've just got to be a little bit wiser in possession, and also take into consideration the opponent and the game scenario. So if you're trailing 3-2 against a side who look a little bit uneasy in the defence, you've got to then maybe adapt it a little bit and start thinking about slowing it down in the final third and just probing and making the defence uneasy, because for me too many times Arsenal were getting away with it a little bit.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But in terms of Ancelotti doing that, I think he's just basically adjusted accordingly to the strengths and weaknesses of his players.
Yeah.
I think when Silva was, in the process of getting sacked and things like that, we spoke about one of the overriding issues, from my perspective at least, seemed to be that he wanted to play quite a modern, idealistic game, but without the players to do it. High pressing and dominating the ball and all this stuff, when you've not really got the players for that. I think Ancelotti, I suppose typical Italian tactician, has appreciated what he's got, set up his team to mask the weaknesses and highlight their strengths.
Yeah.
And it's shown.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. I suppose it's a. Well, in fact, I'll just quickly round off Arsenal before we just continue that point with that Ancelotti. I think overall it was a more competitive game. It was nice to see Everton go to one of the traditional big six and have a competitive game, but it still felt like they were just a little bit short, and there was still a little bit of.
For me, I felt Everton were unlucky to lose.
No, okay, fair.
I felt they deserved at least a point.
Okay. Yeah, I
think the XG captures that as well.
Yeah, maybe I'm being harsh. I don't know. I'm always a little bit more negative because I was just frustrated, to be honest. But maybe to get a point out the game, but not win it. It felt like it was too much in the balance. Whereas it just shows Everton at that stage where they can go somewhere like Arsenal and comfortably control and pick up 3 points. But
to be fair, there's not many that can.
Well, they're still the only undefeated side in the Premier League this year in 2020 on all competitions. They haven't been, not the only side, sorry, they're still undefeated in all competitions since in 2020.
Yeah.
Which is, it does show that Arteta's
I think Arteta's yet
job
to lose as well. I don't think he's lost.
They got beat by Chelsea.
No, he didn't.
Or United, someone? No?
I don't know, I saw that that he hadn't been beaten. Maybe it's worth double checking, but against Chelsea they went down to 10 men, but Martinelli I think scored 2.
I could have sworn they got beat at home by someone
I'll
early
double check it now, but
I know someone will be giving us stick here for not knowing this. But yeah, anyway, look, it was good speaking. It was nice to see that they went somewhere like that and were competitive. It was just frustrating that maybe they couldn't get a result. And moving on to what we kind of touched on was the changes that we've seen under Ancelotti. We've already highlighted the big one in the sense that there seems to be less focus on pressing, more focus on just being direct. We saw an increase in things like vertical/forward passes, for those who are going to be pedantic over there. Won't say any names.
He hasn't lost, by the way.
He hasn't lost?
No.
Fair play.
He's thrown a lot, give you that, but no losses.
Well, he's doing well there. We've actually bigged him up, weren't we, on this show?
Yeah.
Saying
but I think both, to be honest, but Arteta and Ancelotti are both clearly making differences.
Yeah. Well, when I look back on it now, I think what's happened is clearly Arsenal were looking at Arteta and Ancelotti, and Everton were looking at Arteta and Ancelotti. I think Arsenal felt they were in a position to do something, long term, where they could where Arteta could come in, be given patience to build something. Whereas it feels like Everton were in a position where they needed a proven winner who could just manage one of the tougher sides in the division. Something that Bashir actually said. He said Everton is one of the toughest jobs in England at the moment because there's such expectations, and they don't think that an inexperienced coach can handle it, as we've seen with the likes of Silva and Koeman, who were quite early on to their managerial careers. And I guess for both clubs, the appointments make sense. Ancelotti makes sense in terms of experience, and Arteta makes sense for Arsenal, and that's why they're probably both doing well already. But just from the Everton Ancelotti side of things, we have seen improvements, haven't we? In terms of the build and play, and we touched on the points I made earlier. But things like there's more shots per 90, the XG per 90 is better. So I guess I wanted to ask you, do you think that him coming in and not making any sweeping drastic changes, and just instead making those subtle adjustments in line with what he has at his disposal as being kind of key to that?
Yeah, I mean that's what he is. He's renowned for being, I think his book's called Quiet Leadership, isn't it? And he's quite like a calming, relaxed figure who you can never imagine him to be too down, and you can never imagine him to be too up, really.
Just on that, before you continue, I think that's such a good point that we should probably just highlight, because there has been 2 bad moments already for them. The defeat at Anfield to a second, third string Liverpool side in the Cup, and also the Newcastle game where he kind of threw away that 2-0 lead to finish 2-2. And I mean, there was fallout as you'd expect from a fan point of view from the Anfield game, but it did kind of feel like he handled both situations really well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. No, he's quite logical, he's quite grounded. And he seems to have applied that way of thinking to his actual squad, and as you say, there's no drastic changes and things like that, just a slight alteration to how the team attack on the pitch, slight alteration to how the team defend, a formational switch, and maybe a few words in the ears of the players. And if you're getting advice of figuring the mould of Carlo Ancelotti, and you'd be a fool not to take it at the end of the day. And I think because of his stature in the game, players are likely to listen, and it's resulted in quick improvements already, really.
Yeah, and it's also where obviously we're about 9 or 10 league games now into his tenure, and we've seen vast improvements on the pitch. But it's also good to see that in terms of like the underlying numbers. So if you're looking at expected points, which takes into consideration expected goals and expected goals against, Everton are 5th in the table in that since he's come in, which is basically a fairly good assessment of how they've been performing, and suggests, as I said, it's only a small sample size, we know that, but it suggests that we're not probably going to see a major drop off between now and the end of the season, are we?
No, and that's interesting as well, without him making a signing.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to actually seeing what he targets, because I'd imagine he'd have quite a big say in not the players he wants, but certainly the roles and the types of profiles maybe that he feels he's missing.
Yeah.
And the experience that he's had, you'd like to think that he'd have a fairly accurate idea of what he actually needs to start competing at a higher level. And if Everton can deliver those players, I think the immediate future, next 18 months or so, look quite promising.
Well, we've seen it this season. I think next season especially, the Premier League looks like it's going to be really competitive. Obviously, I know Liverpool are miles ahead. I think City will probably come again and be a little bit closer to the next season. But beyond that, it's really, the Premier League is really hard to call, and we've seen that a little bit this season. And I expect Everton to improve a lot in the summer as well. So
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, looking at the sides outside Liverpool and City, I think you've got a lot of different balances there in terms of the squads that you label as good and talented seem to be being led by managers that you could almost label as unqualified, whereas the managers that you would certainly label as qualified are in charge of squads that maybe aren't that great.
Yeah.
So I suppose you've got that there where there's very few teams that have very few clubs in the Premier League at the minute that have got elite on the playing side and the managerial side. So
really good point that. And do you I'm sorry, we're going off on a tangent here, but hopefully people are enjoying it. I'm just wondering, do you think that the likes of maybe Tottenham and our opponents this weekend that we'll come on to in a sec, United, you wouldn't even rule out managerial changes with them in the next year, would you? Because Solskjaer, although I said we'll touch on them shortly, are doing a lot better. But the Mourinho thing at Tottenham's a strange one, isn't it? And obviously they're one of the established top 6 sides, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like the fit's working. It already feels like the wheels are coming off a little bit sooner than I would have expected.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think on the Mourinho side, I think he's making a mistake in terms of the negative publicity he brings to himself. I understand he wants to give the public reasons why he's not getting results, but sometimes just keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Focus on the positive aspects. Just keep staying positive, and before you know it, you'll overcome all these injuries and people. But in the immediate moments, because he expresses all the issues he's dealing with to make himself look better, it makes the whole club feel negative. Really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think when Spurs have got a fully fit squad, I would expect them to start just improving basically under Mourinho. I think Steven Bergwijn's been a good sign.
Oh yeah, it was a very good sign.
And I'll be intrigued to see, once they've been through a full pre-season with them, how they actually do next season, because I fancy them to do quite well, to be honest.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Beyond that, not so much. I think he'll have a very, very brief light over there.
Yeah.
But
finite career there.
Yeah, but I think he's been handed a terrible hand in terms of his start and how things have went for him.
I'm not sure, I'm still undecided. I think he, I don't know, he seems to be doing a lot of his tactics that he does at the latter stages of his club, but he seems to be starting them here. But one to watch. But we'll move on to United, because obviously Everton faced them this weekend. United is an interesting one, because everyone talks about them underachieving, and of course by their standards they are, but they closed the gap really, a lot on Chelsea. They now got one eye on 4th. I think they're only 3 points behind, 5th in the table, but they seem good value for that position as well. Expected points has them as 4th, obviously in the top 4 for expected goals and expected goals against. At the time recording, they're going to play between now and Everton's game, but the 6 games undefeated across all competitions. Do you think it's a little bit of a bad time for Everton to be playing United?
I wouldn't exactly say it's a bad time to play them, but I do think that, the trend of maybe laughing at what they're doing, I do think they're silently doing a bit better than what people think, and I do think they're going towards something that's better than what they've experienced since Ferguson's left, at least. I look at the squad, and obviously one issue with what he's doing in terms of Ed Woodward is, I'd say he's generally now realised the right idea of how to go about things, but he's going about them a little bit slowly.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem capable of organising deals for plenty of players. It seems to be one at a time, and then the most that can get done in a single window is 3.
And it feels like it never feels like the kind of the unearth a gem, or it never feels like it drifts under the radar. It feels like the media's getting drip fed information for around 4 to 5 weeks before. Like I heard from one of our sources from the MEN office that it looks like they're eyeing up Grealish.
It'll be
in the summer.
Interesting to see the summer moves.
But what I mean, but already it's like it's getting, somebody's there kind of, giving an idea that they're interested in this player and that player, and that always to me brings speculation, normally increases transfer fees, and it's not a good way of doing business, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, I know there's still plenty of flaws there and things like that, but I just mean in terms of how they've dealt with the squad in the past 18 months or so. Well, I suppose it's shorter than 18 months actually, but
maybe since the summer onwards.
Yeah, just around that period. I think they're getting to a point where they've got a squad with a young core of players that could all develop together to quite a high level, to be honest. I think you look at Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, Mason Greenwood, Scott McTominay, Brandon Williams. These are players that are all in and around, even Dean Henderson, I suppose you could add into it. These are all players that are certainly under the age of 25 at least. But all have good careers ahead of them, I think. All have good levels, all very mobile, physical, quite modern, good on the ball, determined, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
And if they, I assume they'll get rid of Pogba in the summer. It depends how they reinvest that, if they keep going in this way. But I do think they've generally improved. I think the defence is quite underrated. Got a good defence.
Yeah, they have got a good defence. You know, it feels like people were so desperate to, you know, ridicule Maguire and see the defence do poor because of how much money they paid for them. And yeah, I do think they paid too much, but at the same time, I do think he's been a huge improvement on what they have. And you know, he's club captain now, since Young's gone.
I think what it is, but I think people are inclined to laugh at what they're doing because they seem to have reached a point where they have appreciated that, listen, we need a few transition years here to get back to the level. And I think people are laughing at that because it's Man United and you just don't expect that. You don't expect them to need time away from winning trophies in order to reach a certain level. But I think for me, at least, the way I view the game, credit to them for recognising that. Hopefully they don't achieve it. But I think that's where the laughter stems from, as opposed to the fact that they are just willingly accepting a few years of nothingness with future. I suppose once Pep and Klopp depart from England, United will be ready to take over again or something like that.
That was a good point.
Whether that'll happen or not remains to be seen.
Well, one of the biggest things I've found analysing United, and you've, I'm sure, have found the same, is they had a big issue in terms of breaking sides down who sat in a low block or were happy, you know, to just remain compact. It's why you often saw them getting results against, you know, top six sides who will give you a lot of space and try and dominate the ball, hitting them on the counter. But then they had pretty poor results against teams who chose not to try and pursue possession. But I just want to say that I think, you know, that Everton beat them 4-0 last season, deploying that tactic of sitting back and then hitting on the counter. It was a pretty perfect execution of the same. At Old Trafford, the Everton tried something similar, but it was when Ferguson was in charge, and you know, it was very much back to basics, trying to grind out results. Everton got away with a 1-1 that day, but if you looked at the XG, it was 1.77 to 0.39. So I think Everton, if we're being brutally honest, were rather fortunate. They faced 23 shots in that game.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Hang on, United's XG was what?
1.77.
Oh, 1.77. I thought it was 0.77.
But I will whisper that's as per Wisecout. So okay. It could be something there or there around in reality. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is Everton have enjoyed success sitting back and hitting them on the counter over the last couple of games. But they recruited well on a person that you touched on earlier in January, and I wonder whether he's going to change their fortunes in that regard, and that's the acquisition of Bruno Fernandes. Do you like Fernandes as a player?
I do, yeah. I mean, he showed up as, obviously we look into the data quite a bit and things like that, and he always showed up as what we would deem as an output merchant, in terms of, you know, if you look at what he's doing on the pitch, he just does a great deal more than virtually every other player, certainly in Portugal. Shooting lots, dribbling lots, getting fouled a lot, creating chances for others, assists, just loads.
Yeah.
To the extent that you look like an outlier in comparison to your peers. And usually when that happens, a European team with the biggest stature in Sporting will come in and you know, take him basically. But I found it weird that I couldn't get my head really around why he took until the age of about 25 to actually secure a transfer.
Still a puzzle, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know his price was big.
Yeah.
That can come into it. I think he was 65 million or something like that. And obviously there's some doubt to come into it as to whether he's got a certain character or whatever, but by all accounts he was a bit of a leader over there. But I think based on his early showings since moving, he's still clearly that output player.
Yeah.
He's still clear. I mean, he might be a little bit rough around the edges in certain moments, but he clearly delivers. Just a player with product basically, and he's mainly been deployed as number 10, I think. And if you imagine the player that he's replaced in in that position, Jesse Lingard, he's arguably the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Jesse Lingard might do good things in terms of generating space for others and his mobility and things like that.
I think he does well in terms of pressing the ball and things when they're out of possession, but
his actual output is virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
And Fernandes is the opposite, so players with output ultimately win matches for you. So
yeah, he's spot on. I think what I've noticed is he's shown well the data, but he just purely just eyes alone. He just seems a really intelligent player. You know,
I've been impressed with him.
Yeah, he seems to pick up really good positions. He seems to find the gaps. You know, everything that people ridicule Sigurdsson for in terms of going missing, as they call it, Fernandes is the opposite. You know, he is really good at finding pockets of space to receive possession and just turn around and make things happen.
He seems to have a degree of authority over the pitch and things like that. That was another thing that he showed up as in Portugal. He was a player who took a lot of shots, but also made plenty of passes and assumed possession a lot, which generally is quite an odd mould. Usually those that shoot a lot don't see much of the ball, or those that see much of the ball don't shoot a lot. Fernandes was able to combine that.
Yeah, which makes him quite unpredictable.
Yeah, which makes him a big facet of whatever team he's playing for in terms of how they attack. He's obviously a central player. If you can keep him quiet, then you're keeping a large part of that team's general attack quiet.
Yeah.
Whether that be Sporting or Manchester United.
Yeah, spot on. Everton have actually lost 3 of the last 8 games against United at Goodison. So it feels as though Goodison is becoming a little bit more of that tough place to go that it was in the past. You know, back in the Ferguson under Ancelotti, and Everton have lost one game in 11 at Goodison Park now, all competitions, in 90 minutes only as well. And that was remember that Norwich 2-0 game, that kind of freak result.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, so I think it is going back to being that, especially on emotional games like this. We've talked about on other podcasts about how it's always a tough game for Liverpool, even though Everton don't win a lot of them. They tend to make it difficult for Liverpool to win at Goodison. 1 win in 7 visits, I think Liverpool have there, and obviously United 3 wins in 8. So I think for the emotional games, the crowd tend to get behind, and it is kind of a tough place for these teams to go to. So I guess with that in mind and everything that we talked about, I wonder what your verdict might be for this one.
I think it's going to be tight, but I've actually got written down here 2-1 to Everton.
Oh, yeah.
I do, you know, from an outsider's perspective, I suppose it does feel as though Everton do generally tend to play quite well and cause United problems whenever they face off. And I think what you just mentioned there about the home aspect, I think that stems from Everton just in the past few months to become a bit more aligned than they were before. I think now the fans have obviously got belief in the manager in the manager who's in charge, and the manager who's in charge has tweaked the playing style a little bit to suit Everton as a club a bit more. They're a bit more direct, aren't they? A bit more forward, a bit more aggressive, if you like, rather than just building slowly.
And you know what? You know what's funny? I think our first ever show, we kind of rammed home that point, didn't we? That it's Everton should be a side that are a lot more aggressive on the ball, because that's what fans kind of react to at Goodison.
Yeah, I wasn't overly sure that Ancelotti would be the man to instill that style of game, because he's always been the type really to change wherever he's been. You know what I mean? Depending on the players at his disposal, but obviously he's recognised the need for this at Goodison, whether that be because of Everton or whether that be because of the players he's got. But whatever it is very well suited.
I thought Michael Cox wrote an interesting article on a unnamed publisher where he just said something along the lines of kind of he started out being quite pragmatic previously, talking about Ancelotti, you know, early on in his career, based on, you know, who he learned from, which was obviously one of the great Sarri. But then he because he was going to these top clubs, he was obviously benefiting from you know, having world-class players that he could build a side around. But at Everton, he hasn't really got that, and he's kind of gone back to being a little bit more pragmatic with his team, and it's working. You know, it's good to see. Just in terms of verdict myself, I think I'm not focusing too much on it, even though it'd be nice. But in terms of maybe chasing a place in Europe, it's a must-win game. I think this one, it really is, and I do think Everton will be up for it, and I'm actually backing them to win 2-1 as well. I think United are better than what they were, but United seem to put together a little run where you think they're out of the woods a little bit, and then they'll have 2 or 3 bad results on their own, and I'm hoping this will be another little sequence of that, starting with a win for Everton. So yeah, I'm going to go 2-1, but we'll wait and see, and we'll wrap it up there. Cheers for waiting for me, Josh. I'll go and take you Fernando's now.
Yeah, thanks, mate. You can pay.
But yeah, cheers for everyone who's listening. Should be back to weekly now. Got no holidays planned. I don't think Josh has got any planned though.
No, dedicated mate for the next few months.
That's it. So yeah, we'll hopefully every week now to the end of the season. But thanks very much, and fingers crossed for a win on the weekend. Cheers.
Cheers.
The Royal Blue Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.